What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on in the NFL world? How you doing, division rivals? This is Steven Hyder with Gate City Sports Channel, the sports channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. What's up, guys? Saturday. Hope you guys are enjoying your weekend. One day away from a big game here, guys. That's what I want to talk about. I went through my notes. I watched some film again on Seattle, and I noticed something. They're not as good as people think, but they're very good at winning the time of possession battle. And this is something that I think is going to be really important in this football game against Seattle. You have to get them off of the football field. You have got to win time of possession. I think if someone told me today, hey, you know what, I'm coming from the future, and the Eagles actually win that game against Seattle. The one thing I would probably go look for to see how they won it was the time of possession. Because I think if you can get Seattle underneath 30 minutes, you can get them to where they're not winning that time of possession battle. I think you got a shot at knocking this team off. Because I'm telling you, what this team loves to do is to feed you some Carson and keep feeding you Chris Carson and feed him to you again. Wear you down. Get Russell Wilson on the edges, on bootlegs, rolling out, picking up first downs with his legs, picking up first down with his arm. They love to hit you that way. And if you're going to beat this football team, you got to get them off the field on third down, and you got to win time of possession. And I'm going to walk you guys through 3 games that I went back and took a look at and what I saw, what happened. And these are 3 opponents that played them very closely. 1 team won, 2 teams lost. And I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened.
Pulls it out of the gut of Coleman and then finds Samuel.
To start with, if we go look at last week's game, we all know it was a great game. I think it's been a little overhyped. Oh, it was the greatest game of the season. No, Seattle's had these games all season long. These exact type of games. So I think that's a little overhyped. With that said, I really like the way that San Francisco approached the football game and how it tried to actually jump on this particular Seattle defense. With one caveat, they got pass happy. I didn't get the pass happiness. I love the offensive formations they threw out there, but I thought their balance to run to pass really got way out of balance here. I'm going to give you some examples here. I mean, when you think San Francisco, you're not thinking a team that's going to go out there and throw the ball 71% of the time to 29% of the time running. That's not the impression you get from San Francisco. But like a lot of teams, they're looking at the Seattle defense and they're saying, "Oh wow, like their defensive secondary is not very good." Look, they went out and got Quadre Diggs. Like they've done some things to replace it. They just cut their slot corner. They got a young guy, a rookie coming in that they like a lot, that they're going to allow to play the slot. So, I mean, Seattle's secondary is changing. It still can be taken advantage of, but I don't think that's the way that you attack Seattle. I think that's a misconception. I think that you feel confident that you can beat their secondary, but you don't want to necessarily go right for the jugular at the secondary. I think the way you beat Seattle is you line up on this small defensive line and you push it back. I love the way that San Francisco came out there with basically 50% of their offensive formations were run out of 2 back sets. I've been screaming for this coaching staff all season to utilize the strength of this football team, which is the tight ends and the running backs. We should be seeing way more 2 back sets than we have seen. I don't understand why Doug Peterson and Mike Groh have not gone back to the drawing board, realized where the strength of this football team lies, and started to build in more 2 back sets. Now, I heard the Philly Sports Network kid Liam say that Mike Groh calls the first 15 plays of the game. I have not been able to substantiate that. Until I can substantiate it, I'm going to call bullshit on that. That doesn't sound correct to me. From what I understand, the only thing I've ever heard confirmed is that he's the passing game coordinator, while Stotland's the running game coordinator, and that he calls a 2-minute offense. I have yet to hear anything about him calling the first 15 plays of a game. I think that's a misunderstanding on his part. However, if any of you guys have that kind of information out there and you can prove it, you can substantiate it, send it to me. I'd like to see it. But I'm going to say that that's bullshit until I can substantiate it. Now, I will say this, the first 15 plays of the game against New England, the Eagles did utilize some 2-back set. We didn't continue it, though. We only ran those 2 plays, and then we stopped utilizing it. We should have kept going with it. It should have been built into the actual playbook and for the entire game, not just that opening 15 plays. We need to be way more creative with 2-back sets like San Francisco did. And I want to show you some examples. I'm going to go back to that 12-man again. When you look at that 12-man formation, if you guys aren't familiar with 12-man, guys, it's an easy concept. Simply put, 12-man is nothing more than having 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, and a running back on the field, okay? This is generally speaking, a good way of making a defense think you might run it. However, San Francisco, to their credit, they only ran it 4 times, but they were confusing out of it. They threw the ball basically 3 times to the 1 time they ran it at a 12-man. But it's a good formation to trick you into thinking, oh, wow, they got Breida, they got Coleman. Like, we got to be careful that they're not going to just try to run this down our throat. And it's very effective for setting up their passing game. So I want to show that clip again so you can see it again.
Pulls it out of the gut of Coleman.
I got to give Shanahan credit because I thought his personnel decisions were perfectly suited for the personnel he has available. And I do think that I think they lost Breida during this game, and then Kittle, I don't think, played in this game. So, clearly that factored into the formations in which they attacked and probably that pass-to-run ratio. But nonetheless, utilizing almost 50% of your offense out of 2-back sets and then utilizing some 12-man to give the image of a possibility of run, then mixed in with about 44 to 45% of your offense flowing through 11-man. It was a brilliant game plan. I think this is something the Eagles could duplicate, but we need to be a little more balanced in that run and pass ratio. We need to run the ball way, way more than 30% of the time. That needs to tick back up towards about 45% of our offense going to the run. So I think you can take pieces of San Francisco's game, realize they came very close to catching that time of possession battle win, but no, you got to use the run more on this team. But I do think if you can get those linebackers, if you can get those safeties flowing downhill thinking it's run, pulling that ball out of Miles Sanders' gut and hitting them, I think we can have success here. Now, I do think that Matthews has to step up, and I think J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, if he's dependent upon in this game, he's got to get that separation, use that big body, and catch that ball in stride and really turn it upfield on these teams. We'll see how Alshon Jeffrey is. I mean, if Alshon's healthy, that's going to be a big boost. If he's not healthy or he misses the game, it's going to be a struggle, guys. But I do think that San Francisco's blueprint here, to some extent, can be used by the Eagles again. And what I want to do here, guys, is I want to show you how they utilize 2-back sets, because I thought they did a hell of a job with 2-back sets. And I think the Eagles have got to start using 2-back sets along with 12-man personnel, along with 11-man personnel. It's got to become a more prevalent part of our offense.
Now here's Coleman working behind you.
I have a couple of thoughts about that formation. Number one, I think most of us realize, and I don't know why the coaching staff doesn't quite see it as much as we're seeing it, but we run the ball really well under center. And sometimes I just feel like in games, especially when it's Miles Sanders back there, offense can kind of get a little too comfortable with operating out of the shotgun instead of getting under center, allowing Sanders to get back about 7 yards, give him enough time for those holes to open so he's not dancing so much and getting through. That's one aspect of this. The other aspect of it is that our running backs have turned out to be way better than anyone thought. And adding Ajayi, while I don't think he's the most beautifully fit person with Howard back there as well, it does make some sense, and it's definitely the more skilled position we have with Jordan Howard when he's healthy. Boston Scott can play in this league. Miles Sanders is explosive, right? Ajayi. I'll say this about Ajayi. I would prefer to have Jordan Howard over Ajayi just because of health reasons, things like that. But make no mistake, Ajayi is a more athletic running back than Howard is. He is definitely a more explosive option. He's not just going to stop at a 10, 12-yard run. Ajayi can break a 30, 40-yarder on you. So I will say that about Ajayi. But I do think if you're looking at how they utilize that, if you get a guy like Howard back there, and we've seen it in Buffalo, you can use Howard as a lead block. Howard can do that. Howard is a physical dude. Now, there are other alternatives we can use to where we're not necessarily in a 2-back set, but we can utilize one of our tight ends almost like a running back, almost like a lead back, a fullback. And it's easy for us to take a guy like Dallas Goedert, go into that same formation, but really and honestly, it's 13-man, not necessarily, 21-man, but still utilize the same function of what they did. It's where you're going to take a guy like Big V, put him alongside of Ertz, and then you're going to put Goddard in the backfield with a guy like Miles Sanders and basically utilize a very similar play. It's in a way, really, you're kind of in 21 man, but technically you're also in 13 man and utilize something like that. Go outside of that, go to 20 man and use Scott and Sanders on the field at the same time and press this defense to try to cover these running backs in the flats like that. I mean, I think that you can look at what San Francisco did there. Notice that the Eagles probably, in terms of the tight end play and the running back play, were probably better than San Francisco at that skill set there. Our offensive line is pretty damn good. And actually go after a team like Seattle like that. I think that's a good way of winning the time of possession, really taking the fight out of that Seattle defense. I'm telling you guys, I would love to see this type of offense come out of Philadelphia. I think it's just a way that Philadelphia can take a team that's maybe really not talented at all at the wide receiver position and still threaten the rest of the NFL if we get into the playoffs. So, like, damn, we got to figure out how to shut down that two-back set of Philadelphia, shut down that 12-man personnel and that two tight end sets they run. I think you can take the personnel decisions, the offensive personnel package decisions that Shanahan made against Seattle, change up that run to pass ratio, and maybe have something here on Seattle. All right, guys, I want to jump into what I saw in that Pittsburgh game.
3rd down and 3. Must get to the 30. Roethlisberger under pressure.
That football game there with Pittsburgh and Seattle. Number one, that's a game that Ben Roethlisberger messed up his hand, was out for the rest of the season, and then Rudolph comes in to replace him, basically. On top of that, I think James Conner was a little limped up in this game, but it was surprising that he only touched the football 11 times on running downs. And this team got really pass happy, 69-31 in favor of the pass. 69% of their plays were passing plays. That's not good. It was basically a 70-30 split. You can see is a repeated pattern of teams trying to attack Seattle from in their secondary instead of pushing that defensive line off and making it get tired. It played 67% of its snaps out of 11 man, an additional 4% out of 10 man, and only 29% out of 12 man. Now it was pretty run 50-50 almost, a little more in favor of the run, 47-53 in favor of the run out of 12 man. But I mean, it kept trying to consistently spread out Seattle's defense and attack its secondary, going empty back sets. And they paid dearly for that because Seattle got home on them. Seattle's not probably, I think its pass rush is a little overrated, but nonetheless, it's talented there. It can beat you, even if it's not getting consistent pressure. Eventually, Clowney or Jerrion Reed or somebody, Michael Kendrick, someone's going to get home on you eventually. You got to be careful trying to spread this team out and attack it like that. And once again, it drastically lost the time of possession battle. It lost it 24-14 for Pittsburgh to 33-46 for Seattle. It lost the time of possession battle. Seattle beat it. If you lose that time of possession battle, I'm telling you, it's going to be really difficult to beat Seattle. And this is a game they only won by like 2 points. Nonetheless, they just keep plugging away at you with Chris Carson. You cannot try to get pass happy, try to spread this team out, because if you do that, you better capture a big lead and you better get this team off of the football field on 3rd downs when they're on offense. You can see Pittsburgh, it was a failed and flawed game plan. Now, I want to take you to a game to where the opponent won, but they won in a fluky way. And I think if they didn't have weird fate on their side, there's no way they walk out of that game as a winner.
All-time NFL pass leader by yardage. Kamara.
New Orleans was very fortunate to win that football game. I'm not going to lie. But I thought their game plan was really, really good. They knew they were going to go in there limited offensively. Okay? They knew that they were going to be down there Drew Brees. And I thought they built a great game plan around it. Now, I thought that the way that they utilized offensive personnel, it made a lot of sense. They came out basically 8 offensive plays in 2 back sets, from basically running 6, 7, 8, 9-ish, about 8 or 9 plays coming out of that set, roughly about 27% of their offense came out of two-back sets. They played another 28% of their offense, or roughly 14 snaps out of 12-man. And they were only in 11-man about 40 to 42% of the time. 21 plays roughly. Now, they were heavy pass out of 11-man. But you know what? Overall, they were pretty balanced coming out of these two-back sets, tight end sets, two tight end sets. Even ran a play out of 13-man, 3 tight end set. And overall, we're 54 to 46 pass to run balance. I mean, that's a good ratio. That's where the Eagles need to be. And I'll admit they were fluky. They got a special teams touchdown. They got a defensive touchdown. I mean, it was very fluky. With that said, I think if you take elements of this New Orleans Saints game plan, add that in with the personnel decisions of how San Francisco and Kyle Shanahan attacked Seattle, I think you got a winning recipe for the Eagles here. And there's one more thing I want to add that New Orleans did really well in this game, and it was getting the ball in Alvin Kamara's hands in space. Hint, hint, Eagles. Same thing needs to happen with Miles Sanders. And I'm going to show you a play out of 11-man where they did that.
2nd and 10. Setting up a screen. Kamara. Walker's in front. Inside the...
They built a 20-7 lead off of that, utilizing two-back sets, utilizing tight end screens. I mean, I honestly have a good feeling that the Eagles can keep this game close and pull this one out. Just because where Seattle is susceptible to giving up points and having difficulty getting offenses off of the football field is something I think the Eagles can do pretty well. You don't even have to necessarily utilize just the running back screen. You can hit them with wide receiver screens. You can hit them with tight end screens. We can screen this team. We can run on this team. And for the love of God, I would love to see the Eagles. I'm not asking them to go 50% of the offense out of two-back set, but can we at least start utilizing 15, 20, 25% of our offense coming out of the two-back set? It's just going to make this offense more dynamic. And right now, what we need is the offense to be more dynamic. That's my point about this, guys. I'm loving to see what kind of scheme the Eagles throw together, because if they're paying attention to the film, I think it's obvious how you attack this team. And the other football team, and I really only think there's only one football team that really took it to Seattle and just beat them. And you know how they beat them, guys? By running the football. 38 to 63 in favor of the run. Well, 38 to 62. I don't know how they got their numbers there, but in favor of the run, which was basically only operating your offense 11% of the time. 39% of the time out of the 11-man package, and then going 25% of the time out of 12-man, 16% of the time out of 13-man. And then if you take two-back sets, which they ran 22, 20, 21, and shockingly, they used a 23-man front, which is very rare to see 3 tight ends, 2 running. Like, that's a very rare set, guys, where you have no wide receivers on the field. But they beat them by getting physical with them, guys. They were in the two-back set. Let's count this all up. 13, goes to 15, goes to 17, goes to 19, almost 20% of the time. And they were creative in the way they did it. 22, 20, 21-man, 23-man. They got physical in the 12 and 13-man using tight end sets. Baltimore beat them that way. The Eagles have this ability, guys. This is where the magic needs to happen. You've got to run this offense through your tight ends and your running backs. And then hope young guys like Arthega, veterans like basically if Alshon Jeffrey's healthy to go, and guys like Jordan Matthews can make a play here and there in 11-man. You can take the combination of what Baltimore did to this team, what San Francisco did to this team, what New Orleans did to this team, and build a creative game plan and win. Not only can you win this game, but you can set your offense up for going forward, giving these teams something to look at on film and go, oh, crap, the Eagles have changed. We better pay attention to this offense. It's a different offense. That's what I want to see, guys. That's my content for today, guys. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And here's my question, guys. What do you think about the two-back set? I think the Eagles are missing out on a golden opportunity to really center their offense around 12-man personnel along with two-back sets in conjunction with 11-man. I think they're missing out on a golden opportunity there. Let me know your thoughts, guys. And oh, yeah, it's time to go. EAGLES. All right. I think The recipe for success is here. Win time of possession, become more dynamic through using 12-man in junction with two-back sets, and just win on plays. Something has to happen. Magic has got to be there. Someone's got to step up and make a play that everyone goes, wow, I never thought anyone in this Eagles team could actually make that play. All right, y'all. Peace. I'm out of here.